Hey Sam, thanks for joining me. Do you want to give us a quick intro to who you are and a bit of your backstory?
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here. Yeah, so I'm Sam. I'm based in Scotland, a small kind of like village, about 40 minutes southwest of Glasgow. I'm a product manager currently at Skyscanner. I've been in kind of product management space for probably almost coming up a decade, which is pretty wild to say. Before that, believe it or not, I was a town planner for a number of years. So kind of like shifted into the tech space really only in the last kind of probably like 14, 15 years, because before that I was kind of just making little projects on the side. Um, yeah, by day, PM, kind of during the evenings, weekends, anytime that I can find, it's really just trying to create small and internet, sometimes businesses, sometimes just general projects, with no real kind of like push to make money, just something that I'm interested to explore. So in the past, I've created a few things like one was a company called Philo, which was a 3D printing uh, e-com kind of company. It was a real mess. That was my kind of like first foray
Yeah.
into tech.
When
Um,
was that?
when was that?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, God, that would have been maybe back like 2016, 2017. 3D printing was just at its height. It was seen as like you know, the kind of like crypto of 2022 at the time. This like brand new technology. Everyone's talking about it. We're going to be able to 3D print homes. You can 3D print your own shoes. Like all these things were promised. Um, and I have a kind of had a background in environmental science from university. I wanted to create this hydroponic system. But the only way to prototype would be potentially using a 3D printer. I think I used that, in all honesty, as an excuse just to buy a 3D printer.
Yeah.
I probably could have gone and rented one for the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I bought one, kind of taught myself how to do like 3D modeling, created this prototype. It worked, it was great, really liked it. Started to look into injection molding. Turns out that's unbelievably expensive. And I was petrified. I was like, I'm never going to spend, I think it was like maybe 35 grand or something, on just a mold to
Wow.
be made for this, to do mass production of this. So at this point, I'm stuck with a 3D printer, and got this prototype
Were you full
and think,
time in
well,
that business as well?
no, this again, just a little side project. I just moved to London, um, and that's when I kind of got really caught up in the kind of tech space right there. Because like coming from Scotland, we don't really have that kind of like tech ecosystem up here. We don't have like the meetups, we don't have like the big startup names, any of the events and such. So I got really kind of hooked into that, and I thought I want to create something, and this is kind of the first thing I guess I kind of gravitated towards. Um, so yeah, to cut a long story short with that, believe it or not, I ended up buying another 3D printer. And we had two in our small flat in London, and decided to start 3D printing this product, which is called Grow. And actually, you can I'll put it in. I'll send you the link, but it's on my personal website. You can see it in the previous projects, pictures of it and stuff. Um, but the we started to so I brought one of my really good friends who'd also moved down to London. He joined me, and we created like a series of 3D printing products. So it was like geodesic planters for like succulents and cactus, multifaceted kind of type ones. We used cornstarch as a filament. Yeah, that's it there.
There you go.
So and that's the Grow. That was a prototype system that we had built. I've actually got it right here, sitting in a little cabinet, but I don't know if you can see that there. But that's the actual Grow here. So that would just basically, I would take this and simply just stick it into a plastic bottle,
Yeah.
and you could grow any like herbs or anything from it. As a kind of neat little
Cool.
product. Anyway, we built that. It was a nightmare to run. 3D printers keep breaking, but it did quite well. We got it stocked in a few shops. We implemented a very interesting new API that allowed you to essentially, if you had a 3D printer, you could buy the file and it would actually start printing on your desktop without me actually sending you the file. So you
Right.
couldn't mass produce it. So I kind of encrypted it to your printer and printed it for you, just buying straight from our website.
Yeah.
So it was quite good fun. Um,
It sounds quite
but
technical
yeah,
as well from a like standing start.
yeah, it was.
Being
It was a
technical
lot,
to create them.
yeah. The company we had that created this, we must have spent hours, days doing like debugging, customer support, them trying to help us implement it into our website, which we built in Weebly at the time,
Yeah.
because I'm non-technical. Or certainly definitely was back then. So I had really not a huge understanding of how to build websites. So this was just using Weebly, which was like the big no code website builder at the time, kind of before like the big Squarespaces and such. So yeah, we built that, and then eventually I found a buyer for it, and that was acquired by a guy in the US. And I think it might be running today, maybe not. I've not checked in a while. But that was kind of the first kind of foot in the door of like, wow, like that was a bit of a ride. We made a very small amount of money. I think we probably made less than 10 grand at the sale.
Yeah.
We sold the two 3D printers, made our money back there. And yeah, it was really good experience. But that kind of led me into my next thing. It's like, well, I'm non-technical, and I've just managed to create quite a technical product. Um, and a lot of friends and people I'd met are like, well, if you're non-technical, how do you create that? And I told them like, oh, here's all the tools I use. And I've kind of like stuffed them together and wrapped tape around them. And, it's just like this janky product, but it works. Like on the hood, it looks really nice, right?
Yeah.
Like it looks like it's like a Ferrari on the outside and it's like a broken down Nissan Micra under the hood.
Yeah.
Um, so I thought, well, why don't I package all these tools that I've collected? Because no code back then, 2016, 2017, that phrase, when you type that into Google, right, there's zero search volume for that. It wasn't a kind of term or category type that was discussed really.
Yeah.
So I built a quick landing page on Weebly again, gathered all the tools that I had, and I launched a product called Nocode.tech on Product Hunt.
Mhm.
I think I got maybe first or second product of the day on Product Hunt. Got a couple thousand signups, and then that kind of validated that, listen, this potentially a product built here. I hadn't even built it at this point. It's just a
How
landing
long did
page.
that take you? Was that just a basic landing page with like a list of the tools that you've already used?
Yeah, yeah. So again, I think I've got on my personal website. There might be a picture of the original landing page there, or maybe not actually. It was so ugly, maybe I didn't put it on there. It's maybe in some of the content that I wrote a while ago.
Right.
But yeah,
Okay.
this was like a one pager on Weebly, value proposition, but subtext to explain it, email capture, and
Yeah.
that was literally it. And I started building this directory of tools, and it, it did 100 times better than I thought. I didn't think many people would be that interested in it. And then
Yeah.
from there, that's something I ran for about like 2 years. Built it up to, I don't know, must have been about 20, 30,000 subscribers. Created a bit of a community, um, big newsletter, and then kind of monetized it through a lot. The companies have started to realize there's quite a lot of traffic coming from your website. So take for example, um, like one of the website builders, they would notice there's a lot of traffic coming. Their kind of marketing team would reach out and they'd be like, "Hey, we see a lot of traffic coming our way from your site, but we're number 5 in your list. Could you put us up to number 1?" And then obviously the penny dropped, and like, I can make money from this. So they'd have an exclusive deal, 3 months. They could have their, yeah. So
Here we are.
that's the, believe it or not, that was the modernized version of Nocode.tech. It looks old now, even just looking at it. And if you go to Nocode.tech today, it's still around. It looks 1,000 times better than what it does, what it did back in the day when I had it. Um, so yeah, it was acquired from me quite a while ago. Um, and there's a really interesting story about the acquisition of this. So I I kind of crossroads where I was working on a few other projects and I just started as a product manager. The traffic to the website was doing extremely well, but that gave me so much anxiety. It was like doing well, but I couldn't really put any effort into it. So I thought, well, maybe this is a great time to get out, right? Maybe to cash out. Nocode.tech for me at the time felt like it was at its peak. Little
Yeah.
did I know, you could see a chart. It was down here, and the peak was actually up here. I thought, I'm in the peak right now.
Right.
I was so far away from it. But at the time, I thought this is a great time to offload it. So
And what kind of
stick
revenue
out.
was it doing at that point?
Probably like it was like up and down. But if we could kind of average it out at the time monthly, it was probably making like a good couple grand. Um, through newsletter sponsorships and just advertising on the website.
Yeah.
And so I put up, there was a few websites where you can kind of sell these products. And I created an account and I got a bunch of emails of people interested. And it was the same questions I was going to ask, giving the same response. And then it would just go quiet, it would go dead. Or sometimes the offers would just be so bad. So I pretty much gave up. And then just randomly out of the blue, I get this email from somebody saying, "Hey, I'm really interested in acquiring this." And he was the only person that said, "Can we just jump on a call and chat?" And at this point, I was like, yes. I can't send the same response back that I've sent 1,000 times before and go through this whole back and forth. If we could just have a call and you get to meet the person, see how serious they are. So we jump on a Zoom call. And then bear in mind, this could be anyone in the whole entire planet. And this guy jumps on the call, never met him, but he's got a Scottish accent. And so he introduces himself, tells me where he used to live. It's like 15 minutes from where I am right now.
Yeah.
And we met in London because I was still in London at the time. He was there for business, and we had a really great chat. He decided to acquire it, and we're still friends today. So he acquired it, and then weirdly, a few years later, I get an email from him going, "Hey, I've got some good news and bad news. The good news is that Nocode.tech has been acquired again. It's been acquired by a company called it's called Stacker,
right.
Which is a no-code tool.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was working for Softer, which was the direct competitor.
Yeah.
So essentially, a product I had built had been acquired by a competitor who, within obviously the company I was currently working for, which was Softer at the time. So then he convinced me to come and join Stacker as part of the acquisition, and that kind of brought me from Softer across to Stacker. And I wasn't working on that product. I was working as a PM within Stacker, building their no code web app platform.
Yeah.
But it was a really just interesting series of events that started off as this kind of tiny little idea, building it up, selling it to someone, making a good friend out of it, and then ultimately then getting hired by the company that he'd sold it to. Yeah, it was a fascinating journey.
Fantastic. And what was you said there was bad news as well?
Well, I mean, the bad news was I was working for a competitor,
Yeah.
whereas I would basically need to sit and watch my product get built by the company that we're ultimately competing against at the time.
Yes. Right, fair enough. Yeah.
So
A strange
it made sense.
Full circle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's been a bunch of products, that's just a few, to name a few. Now I'm kind of working on my kind of current focuses, I guess, are on writing a newsletter. It's a personal newsletter that I've got. So for a lot of the products I've built, I've always kind of created a newsletter. And I think it was when selling Nocode.tech is I didn't have that, I guess, medium to really share any of the tools that I found. I think like one thing I'm just fascinated in is curation, because as you know, the internet is so vast, and there's just so much content. I love sifting through that, picking out certain things that I like, and then sharing it. And that's kind of what Nocode.tech was at the time. And I lost that, through the sale. So I thought, well, I'm just going to create my own personal newsletter, and start sharing some of the content, the tools, that I've been using, consuming, and yeah, that's been almost 3 years with that, and going strong.
Excellent. So I guess what has always led you to building lean businesses sounds like curiosity as much as anything else. Like, you're scratching that itch of, I like to curate. I want to find out about these products. I may as well publish that and then see where things go.
That's absolutely right. And I think over time I found that there is the products that I've gone to actually create for probably to make money are the ones that have typically failed. The ones that I've done out of just pure curiosity with no emphasis on making revenue, are the ones that have done the best,
Yeah.
ironically. So it's definitely kind of taught me to just, follow interests, follow passions. And then usually you kind of, you find your way. I think the thing that I always try and keep in the back of my mind is, for example, take the newsletter or Nocode.tech. Like I could do this for another 10 years and I don't think I'd tire out because it's a byproduct of my interest. I'm going to be reading this content anyway. I'm going to be playing with these tools anyway. I'm going to write because I just like writing. But why don't you kind of create the byproduct of that is the newsletter. So something I'm doing anyway. I've got my own routine that I enjoy. And it's
Yeah.
same with like any product. Like, I've got another one called Beta Directory. I love finding software products that are in beta alpha stage. But as a byproduct, I create a website and I share that with other people. But I'm going to be doing this anyway, regardless whether the website is doing well or not.
And have you always typically kept your projects as like side projects, side hustles?
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that a conscious choice, or because it's more in pursuit of your interest, or would you stop
Um,
at some stage, do you think, or?
in all honesty, it's probably because I'm petrified to actually, quit a 9 to 5. Um, if I'm being super honest, like,
Fear comes up a lot, so it's a really kind of pertinent topic.
yeah, I mean, nothing's like taken off extremely well that it would be able to satisfy probably my my 9 to 5 income. And, you know, having a family, I guess you need to consider that a lot more. And it's not to say like there's definitely an ambition in the future that I'd love to have probably, a suite of small lean businesses, and not do a 9 to 5. But
Yeah.
I think at this particular moment in time, these are just little passion projects that just some of them make a bit of money. And I get to explore those passions. And I think it's also a creative outlet because 9 to 5, you've got constraints, other people's money that you're spending, making mistakes, like after work, I switched my laptop to my personal laptop and I could do anything I want. I could do any of my own experiments. I can make a bunch of failures. It's on me. And that's what I really like about the kind of creative outlet of these side projects.
Yeah. So it's interesting, like the interplay between like obviously not wanting to necessarily step out, because of being concerned about it, but then equally it means that you've probably got less fear in your project as well, because there isn't that like pressure. I know with my businesses it's all pressure, and there's often I wish for a 9 to 5 because then you've just got some consistency and all your eggs aren't in one basket kind of thing. But it kind of takes the pressure off your project as well. And one of my questions would be is like, tell me about a tough time, as a lean operator. But I guess that becomes like less tough if it's not your sole, source of income and things.
No, absolutely. Like I can see, another side that like, but part of me does think if I just put all my creative effort into like one of these projects, I could potentially build them up to satisfy, the sort of income that I would need per month. I think just, my circumstances, or I've got a very new child, um, less risk. Like I'm kind of very risk averse at this kind of phase of my life.
Yeah.
But eventually, when I can take a little bit more risk, I would definitely love to just pour a lot more of my time into something that could hopefully be a full-time gig at the
Yeah.
end of it.
Yeah.
But absolutely, that's the beauty of, I guess, of doing these side projects is like, as you mentioned, there is no expectation necessarily of I have to make this certain amount this month.
Yeah.
For example, the newsletter, like I had probably a good maybe like £800-900 coming in per issue in sponsorship. But I decided just to stop doing that because I just didn't want the stress of dealing with people sponsoring my newsletter. It took up way too much time and it was a real pain.
Yeah.
I can make that decision, right? Like quite easily, because it was just like extra income that was coming in. And I realized that actually the income's not as, doesn't, is the stress is a lot more than the value of the income coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. Fine. And I guess operating these as side hustles, it kind of magnifies the requirement to run them in a lean fashion if you also have, a 40-hour work week to contend with as well. Probably means that you're quite conscious of your processes and systems, and to create the sides of newsletter that you write, so I presume you've got to have some shortcuts to make that happen.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely. So I guess the things I'm running just now is the newsletter, starting something new, which is something called validation call, and then another little thing which is do a bit of consultancy on the side, and then beta directories. That's kind of like maybe four things.
Yeah.
Not all equal amounts of time are required for each of those, and I guess I just try and divide myself up across those. And that's usually in the evenings, or spend a little bit of time, at the weekend across those.
Okay.
Some of them have got more processes and systems because they're a little bit more mature.
Yeah.
Other ones are just like mega lean. Everything's done, manually, for the most part. When it comes to newsletter, though, like some of the systems that I've got in place there is I'm looking at a lot of content, right, every single day, and it's really trying to like refine, I guess, my content consumption
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much out there. So basically, I've got a few different channels that I use to find really good, interesting content. Then once I've got those defined, and then I basically just spend a bit of time every single day going through those channels, and anything that I like, I use a tool called Pocket. It's been around for a while. It used to be called Read Later. Now called Pocket, which was acquired by, I think it was Firefox a while ago.
Yeah.
And they've got this really handy Chrome extension that you can use. So you literally just click the Pocket icon, and then it essentially saves it to Pocket. But Pocket's kind of relatively unstructured. You can add tags to it, but I prefer to kind of look at it in a spreadsheet view. So what I've done is essentially hooked it up to Airtable using Zapier.
Is this something you can
So what?
do a screen share?
Absolutely, yeah. I can
That'd be
screen
really
share
handy.
this.
So I guess obviously we like to teach in this chat as well. Is that what you're going to run us through? Maybe this kind of curation process and how your system and process around that.
Absolutely, yeah. I can do that for you right now. Right. So this is something you were showing me earlier, Alex. So this is a product that you mentioned. So this is something that interests me. I can simply go up to, I'll keep this open for you. So I'm using Arc, which is something I can explain, chat a bit later because I love this product. But using Arc browser, but this is essentially just an extension. It will be, I think they've got a Pocket across all different web browsers. Anyway, I just click this, and then it says add tags. So I've created my own tag, which is newsletter. So just type in there, click newsletter, and then I just click save, and it goes away. So I'm literally just sifting through all this content, and I'm literally just clicking anything that interests me slightly. I've not refined it yet. I've not like read it entirely through. I've not played with the product yet, but it's just something I want to consider for the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes into Airtable, which is basically just a bit of a Google Sheet on steroids. And what it'll do is it just adds it to this giant list. I've created a few
You're adding that
columns.
with
So I've
it.
got the
Is that a Zapier hookup from Pocket?
That's the Zapier hookup from Pocket, exactly. So Zapier is essentially just taking the URL and is then passing it to this particular Airtable base.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's I've defined I just want to get the title in there. So it's all coming from the meta
Yeah.
description within the URL. It's pulling out a description. It's obviously giving the URL. I like to put in the date created. And then I've added this kind of status column. Now, in all honesty, status column is working great, and I have just neglected it. What I did do was, if I really like something, I would approve it, and I would go into kind of a different view. And then if something that I just wasn't interested in, I'd reject it, or something I'm considering it'd be pending.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it all comes into here. Then I open them up, take a read through it, and I use Substack to create my actual newsletter. A
Okay.
lot of content though that I get comes from other newsletters.
Yeah.
So I use something called Stood, which is a great little free RSS curation tool. So it just gives me my own email address. I use that to sign up to all my newsletters. I don't want newsletters going into my kind of personal email inbox. And then I use a bit of an inbox zero type process where I'm literally just going through, reading something, ticking off that I've read it, and then I just literally go through one by one and read every single day till it gets to inbox zero. Any links that I like, I use the Pocket system to save it down, and then this rinse and repeats every single day, this kind of process.
Okay. So you must time box that process to stay on top of things. So you'll just say, right, half an hour, I'll run through, my Stoop inbox, and then I'll curate my links using Pocket, and they're landing in Airtable. And then at some stage, you'll sit down and dig into those a bit deeper.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So it's literally probably about 30 minutes every single evening, going through newsletters. I've got a pretty curated Twitter feed from people that I follow. So I'll spend a bit of time scrolling through there, save anything down into bookmarks there.
And how do you
There's
curate from Twitter to avoid like going down different rabbit holes and things like that? Do you have an interface that you use?
No, I actually just use the kind of like the kind of standard Twitter app, just kind of going through that. It does really cute, and then that feed just becomes unmanageable. So
Mhm.
spend a bit of time grooming that, and unfollowing people, following new folk. There's a few people that I find really interesting. I'll set up an alert, and that'll give me a notification when they've maybe shared some new content.
Yeah.
That means I can just drill straight into that straight away. So yeah, that's probably, I'd say, other than newsletters, probably the other most, I guess, valuable source of information is usually through that. Things like Indie Hackers, Hacker News, Reddit. These are kind of maybe other sources of information as well.
And was it always like this, your process, or was it different to this in the past? And have you layered over this process or?
Yeah, well, in the past, it was actually probably a little bit more advanced than this. I think I used Feedly before, um, and I was paying for that. I also really tried to almost automate the entire newsletter creation process back in the day for my personal newsletter.
Yeah.
But it was just too advanced for my needs. Like I've found in the past, like things like if you've got quite a an advanced Zapier workflow, one thing goes wrong in it, and you don't maybe get that alert in your email that it's failing, the
Yeah.
whole chain breaks down, right? It's like any software product, right? It's just one little bug kind of break that whole chain. And that a few times was a real annoying setback. And I'd have to go in and reconfigure it, or Zapier would put up the prices, or one of the other tools wouldn't connect to it anymore. And I was, at this point, I maybe had like 200 subscribers. And I'm like, I've got the most advanced workflow
Yeah.
and there's really no need for it, right? I can, so I think certainly what I've learned is like build the automation as and when you need it, right? Don't like project forward and think, oh, I need to build this first.
Yeah.
And it's like in any software creation process, what I do as my day job is like, no, we're trying to learn, then create, and not like try and think too far ahead and create this absolute monolithic software product that we've really got nobody using for the most part. We've not even validated it. So it's definitely a bit of learning there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've definitely been down that route before, and I use Make a little bit more than Zapier, but when it breaks,
Mm.
and then you almost have to like re-educate yourself on that workflow that you set up and how it works, and that then it's a huge time sink.
Yeah.
And yeah, just over engineering something. It's a bit like the approach to this newsletter is that, right, I'm just doing it minimum kind of quality and just see if the content resonates, and then we'll do more. And hence we're on Zoom and there's going to be no edit and things like that, because I think over time you just invest based on people's interest, and if I enjoy doing it and things as well.
100%. I think I've also made the same mistake in the past with like email sequences.
Yeah.
So I create like a whole email funnel. It's super advanced, and in my opinion. And this is something you don't want to get wrong, right? Because like an internal tool is fine, right? I'm going to get impacted by it. Um, but if you make a mistake with your email sequence, and someone's going through it, like I've had it in the past where it's just been sending like way too many emails to one person, or it's
Yeah.
completely out of whack, right? Like uncontextualized emails coming to you, and you're like, what is this guy on about?
Yeah.
It makes sense in a sequence, but these are randomly sending out, and it was just a complete mess.
Yeah.
And again, like I was trying to be too clever for my own good at that point. And I really just had to completely strip it back,
Yeah.
and keep it just really simple. And I've done this, again for over designing things. I've spent weeks designing just what I think a beautiful newsletter looks like, but I've actually seen great examples of people just writing in plain text, right? Like, and actually getting a much better engagement rate, better open and click through rate for a whole host of reasons. But I think this kind of like, and I think we've spoken about before, Alex, like this kind of more raw type of like content when it comes to like video, written
Mm.
type content. It's not heavily edited. I
Yeah.
think we're kind of maybe going back full circle here because we're kind of going through this phase of like everything's just too perfect looking and
Yes.
over edited. So I generally would consider with the validation call, I think I'm just going to go back to plain text like emails. So it just looks like I've sat down and written it out to you and you only.
Yeah.
There's no branding or coloring or images or GIFs or anything. It's just going to be literally a nice email.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, obviously branding this newsletter and things, and follow Greg Eisenberg, and he does this little sketches and
Spreadsheets.
diagrams and things. And then I stumbled on someone on LinkedIn yesterday, Chris Donnelly. It's absolutely flying on LinkedIn. I think he's gone from 50,000 to 500,000 subscribers, and he's sharing a lot of image posts. And I think they're computer generated, but they look like illustrations, and to the point where
Mm,
there's folds on the page. But I think it's actually a
nice.
PDF. So he's digitizing the creation of something that looks like a paper copy. Just like,
Mm,
the fact
I
it's come
like
full
that.
circle to that. And I think there's this thing of, I started doing AI images for my blog, and then I think I read someone's commentary somewhere that actually, if they see an AI image for a blog, they think it's written by AI. Whereas I'm like, oh, I'm doing my own content a disservice by using an AI image for it. Same with like AI written posts on LinkedIn, you can spot them a mile off. So I think like getting back to the kind of raw production
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah, and I've seen people that there's a bit of a logo. I actually wanted to write about it. There's like almost what's the word for it? It's like an accreditation mark, right? That people are starting to use,
Right.
and it's a little logo you put at the bottom of your content, and it's basically saying that I'm not a robot, right? Like this is being written by Sam
Yeah.
and Sam only. There's been no AI tools used in this. And I
Right.
found that really interesting. Like this could be a new thing, right? It's like, how do we distinguish between, some people use AI in their workflow, right? Being a writer. Some people actually use it to help with their writing. Some people then in the opposite end of the spectrum might just purely use AI. So I think people are looking for more authentic content, like we're saying, and having this little watermark essentially on their content to suggest that this is original content that's been written by them. It's pretty interesting. I wonder if we're going to see more of that crop up.
Yeah, it's a bit like the declaration of advertising on Instagram or things like that. And it seems to be
Yeah.
like a concerted effort on all of these posts, like mentioned Chris there. On every post it'd be like created by Chris Donnelly. And so they're very conscious to try and put that like watermark on there,
Mm,
you know, for ownership, but also for
exactly.
them to say like this isn't AI. But then I don't know, like where does the line stop? To like, because if you're using it for outlines, does that mean that you're writing with AI, or does that mean it's just part of your
Mm.
application process? Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to be clear and crisp.
No, I mean, I definitely, I have used it in the past to suggest, it has been really helpful. Like, for example, for subject titles,
Hmm.
for the newsletter.
Yeah,
It'd been that kind of like creative, like sparring partner of like, what about this? Or could we slightly change this? Or what's a few versions of this written a little bit differently, bit more catchy, bit more witty, and that's been really helpful. I've enjoyed that.
mm,
Um, I used barely.ai in the past, and that was great for go back to my workflow with uh, reviewing content.
yeah,
Is some of the longer form pieces, I would ask it to give me an executive summary.
yeah.
And then I would kind of read through that and think, oh, is this interesting? If it is, click pocket and it'll go straight into my backlog to review.
That's from fans product, isn't it? Is it?
That's right, exactly.
You
Yeah.
kind of skipped
It
that bit
says,
earlier from reading on Pocket to the approval. Do you have anything between
mm,
that stage and then writing on Substack, or is it purely then you're summarizing, the written? And do you use anything in particular for writing and things like that?
yeah, this is a great question because I've really jumped back and forth a lot here, with that with the actual writing part and what tools I use. So previously I used Notion to do that because I'm a big Notion fan. That's I was previously Evernote. I then got converted
Yeah,
and migrated everything across, and then yeah, I just love the flexibility of Notion. So I started using that to write my content. Um, and then I think at that time I was using Review for the newsletter.
mhm,
That got acquired by Twitter, and then when X became a thing with Elon, then he sunsetted the product.
yeah,
So I had to move, and I jumped across to Substack. And actually, I think the interface to write in Substack is great.
mhm,
And sometimes, like my versioning, I would like start a little bit in Notion, and I'd jump the gun and go into Substack, and then they'd be out of whack. So now I've just kind of stopped writing on Notion and actually basically write the whole draft out in Substack now,
yeah.
um, which seems to work, great so far.
Cool. So you'll have a template, you'll take your links across, and then you'll write around them.
Exactly. So I duplicate the previous issue, and then I go in and strip out everything. On Notion, I've got a checklist, which is a template checklist. So I'll have April newsletter. I triggered the newsletter checklist template. And that's just basically a checkbox, right? Like subject, title, intro, I've got the sponsors on there. When I was doing sponsors, have I got content one, two, three? Have I got hyperlinks one, two, three? Have I got previously tweet of the week? Have I got? And I would methodically go through that and make sure I've ticked everything off. Import any subscribers that have come from external sources.
Yeah.
Create a new image. All these sort of things, and I would just kind of go through and tick them all off.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome checklist just to like, to manage your process, and pretty kind of, straightforward as well, but keeps you on track.
Yeah, because silly mistakes pop up and you don't have that. Like I have published newsletters before, and the old links are in each of the buttons. So from
Yeah.
last month, I forgot to import subscribers. I have just so many different things that have skipped my mind. But the checklist kind of makes you methodically kind of go through that.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for sharing all that about your writing process and curation. What is there kind of one piece of advice you'd give someone looking to create like a lean side project?
Yeah, I think definitely just trying to keep your tool stack as lean as possible, right? Choose something you're comfortable with using. Don't necessarily jump to the newest shiny thing initially. I'm terrible for that. Like shiny object syndrome with software products. Um, so for example, like, for me, I'd use like a product like Card, which was like the easiest tool to use to build a landing page. And it was super cheap. I don't want to invest a lot of time in design. I don't want to spend a lot of money on the actual tool itself. Get something out there super quick. And and again, just keeping to that general rule of simplicity and being lean is like, I just really invest in two social channels, right? Where there's so many now. You think, oh, do I have to create content for this platform, that platform to try and get sales or users or clicks? Again, do the one you're most comfortable at. I don't want to have to learn a whole new tool. Like I was already playing around in Twitter. I continue to use Twitter.
Yeah.
Sometimes use a bit of LinkedIn. These are two tools I'm familiar with. The other ones can come later once I've kind of mastered those ones.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm pretty like risk averse, so I try and like not spend a huge amount of time or money on something that just started.
Yeah.
Like that investment can come later once I've proven to myself it's worth investing in. So it's creating a super simple product with a few small tools, trying to time box everything as much as I can. Like I want to spend 2 days on the website. I want to spend 3 days this week doing the maybe the marketing and sales. Maybe I need to have a bit more of a process or internal tool built to manage all this. I'm going to spend half a day on that.
Yeah.
And eventually these things, as and when I need them, will start to evolve and grow. Like we've just spoken about, like we'll eventually start to add automation when I need automation. And not try and do it before I actually require it.
No.
Yeah.
That's some great advice then. I mean, is there kind of one resource, like book, person, podcast that's had like a huge influence on you, or a big influence?
Yeah, these are all going to be super cliche and probably a lot of like what your readers will already know. Um, one one guy that I just love his content is Paul Graham, of the kind of the founder of Y Combinator.
Yeah.
His writing is just, he doesn't write that much, right? Which is great because I get anxiety when there's a great guy writing, but he's writing daily and I can't keep up with his writing.
I know, I know the feeling.
So
Yeah.
um, this guy like might write a post like once a month, sometimes even less frequently. But like when he writes something, he has maybe spent like months or years actually creating this post.
Mhm.
Um, it's extremely well written, super punchy. It's relatively long form, but he's taking sometimes a very kind of complex thing and distilling it down for you. So his content's been great, specifically for me in the kind of in the entrepreneurship type content or software startup type
Yeah.
content. It's been really great. I think for kind of like finances, I'm a bit of a kind of personal finance nerd, so like Naval is another great writer, thinker, philosopher when it comes to these sort of things.
Um,
Um, and I think he's got a great book that I got gifted by someone. I can't remember the name. It's like I can dig it out for you, but essentially someone took all these tweets and
oh,
all these content on
the Almanac of Naval.
Almanac.
Yeah,
That's it,
yeah,
of
yeah.
Naval. Yeah,
Yeah, the
that was genius idea from that person.
oh,
He's made
yeah,
millions as well from that, which is basically packaging up. Like you've got an extremely influential person, but he's not created a book. Reach out to him, and basically offer to create a book for him,
mm.
and take all his content, distill it down into this book, and sell it. And it's been incredible. It's a great,
Oh yeah,
great
it's
read. It's so
fantastic.
easy to read.
I think it's one of my only kind of bookmarked podcasts is the kind of Naval talking through all of the
Yeah,
Almanac as well. That's really good. So I'll put that link in.
I need to check that
Um,
out.
and I think I've seen someone do something similar with Jack Butcher's visualized value. I think he created like an index of all the graphics. But yeah, that
That's
concept of
right.
like bundling of the advice, like which will take someone a long time to do, but creates this amazing resource that we've both read and presumably probably was a bestseller, brought Naval to the masses
It,
more.
it goes back to curation again, though, right?
Yeah,
This person is online everywhere, like YouTube. He's put stuff into Twitter. He's done like other lectures. He's written other content for other sites, and this person is bringing it all in, and then categorizing it, cleaning it up, and then making it really, and asking them to expand on certain things as well.
yeah.
Biology is another one he's done the same book for. Again, he's a very deep thinker, um, but sends out 240 character tweets, and your head's just blowing up,
Yeah.
right? You're like,
I mean, have you
so
read this mornings? Like, 'cause it was just like, yeah, it was crazy. It's really got me
yeah,
like interested, but also panicking.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, those are just a few um, folk that I guess I follow, and admire. But there's so many, like I could speak about, but these are just a few of the ones that I think have just very high caliber of consistent content.
Awesome. And so where can people learn more about you and your businesses?
Yeah, so my personal website is probably the best place. So that's just samdickie.me.
Yep.
You can kind of see some of the content that I've written. I've got loads of free downloads in there, particularly for any Notion nerds like me, any kind of creator templates and stuff there. And then I'm pretty active on Twitter as well. So it's just at this Dickie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably two best places to go and check out and
I must say,
interact.
like, your personal website, Sam, is like one of the single best personal websites I've ever come across. I mean, it's like fantastic, and anyone listening, reading, needs to go and check it out as well as a yeah. I mean, it's awesome.
I really appreciate that. I mean, again, just for anyone out there, like I'm not a designer, I'm not technical, but I spent a bit of time in Webflow and just kind of taught myself how to create it. Again, it's one of these ones that might look nice on the outside, but if you came and looked behind the hood of my class names, and
Yeah.
it's a complete mess. It's held together with
You
duct
couldn't send
tape.
anyone else in there, basically, could you?
Yeah, I would never let anyone that knows Webflow into my Webflow designer. They would have a heart attack.
Fair,
Um,
fair.
that was my playground to make mistakes,
Yeah.
and I'm still using it to make a ton of mistakes. But yeah, I'm a big fan of people personal websites. Again, I've got a whole curated list of people who've got much better personal websites than I've got. Again, on my website, which you can check out. But I think
There's a
it's
link to that.
a great tool for people is just to share their interests and personalities and everything
Mm.
through a personal website. I can't kind of say highly enough how much that's kind of like changed my life as having a personal website. It's been great.
So what's next for you?
Well, apart from trying to bring up a young child, my main priority is trying to actually get a product called validation call, which is just something that I've been itching to do at least for the last 5 6 years. And it's really trying to help like early stage creators, makers, entrepreneurs um, validate their business ideas
Yeah.
better. Um, and just now it's just a landing page. It's up there. Spent way too much time creating. So we're
Yeah.
talking about lean here. Don't go and create that. Look at that website because that was not lean. That was someone That was someone basically doing the exact opposite of what I typically teach.
Yeah.
Um, but I just love the design aspect of things. So that was just a bit of fun, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's going to start hopefully building out over um, the coming months or year. And this is kind of like a new approach that I'm taking, which is building super slow
Yeah.
because I'm really bad for setting my own deadlines and they're ridiculous. I get stressed. I'm trying to make this an enjoyable process
Yeah.
because in the past I've just things have started off being really enjoyable and then I've just set, I guess, unachievable deadlines. So it's going to be a real slow build. I'm trying to make sure that people that have subscribed are fully aware of that. No expectation that this is going to launch tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and build out some of the resources that I've got here. And then I'm working on an ebook as well on the side. But yeah, it's going to take its time, but I'm trying to enjoy the process.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic approach, isn't it? And I'm not a fan of like hustle culture and like fail fast and things like that. It's like, well, take the contrarian approach and be like, right, well, I'll build, and people will support it or they won't, and I'll enjoy that build and enjoy the journey. And then you can build it to the quality standard that you want to build it.
That's it. It's the only way to keep stamina up, and not burn out and enjoy the process and maintain the passion. And I've learned that, unfortunately, it's taken me probably 15 years to get to this point. This is the first product that I built with this new principle.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we can catch up, Alex, and maybe like a year's time, and I can let you know if this new principle's worked out for me or not.
I'll hold you to account. We'll get Leanpreneur into the validation code as well. Test
Yeah,
them out. But that's great. Thanks very much for your advice. And yeah, cheers for sharing.
no problem at all.